the most powerful designer drugs are the digital ones we use daily. And we get high off them. One touch, tap, like, scroll at a time. Just like tech creators want us to. Use digital without digital using you. Learn more at sync.ithra.com.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, their songwriting techniques, and occasionally getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. Welcome to episode 155. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Our guest today is Bella Taylor-Smith. The pop singer took out the crown on The Voice for 2021, and last week she released her brand new EP entitled Look Me in the Eyes. In today's episode, we're speaking with Bella about her experience on the show, songwriting with her partner, and touring with Guy Sebastian. Here we go. Our guest today is an incredible singer-songwriter from Sydney, Australia. After picking Team Guy and taking home the crown on The Voice Australia for 2021, she's back now with her first collection of music since the show, with the EP Look Me in the Eyes. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Bella Taylor-Smith. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Bella. Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Sydney, in Carlingford, in mine and my partner's studio.
Beautiful. I always like I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming it's a home studio.
Yes, it is.
I always like I don't think you can ever go wrong with some fairy lights that I can see in the background in a home studio. It always just gives that kind of, that vibe. Good
vibes, 100%.
Yeah. It is an exciting week for you, Bella. The EP, your debut EP under EMI is out now. Look Me in the Eyes. Congratulations. Yes. This is a very exciting time.
Thank you. It is very exciting. I'm so thrilled that everyone's getting to hear it.
Of course. This is as I mentioned, this is the first EP under EMI, and it's a big kind of step, I guess, for in your artist's career. How are you feeling about finally having these songs? Because I know you've probably been working on these songs for a while. How are you feeling about finally having them out to the masses and people being able to hear them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think whenever I release anything or write anything, it's always quite personal to me. So I guess, it adds that sort of level of exposure. But I'm just really hoping that people will have the opportunity to personally connect to the lyrics and just enjoy the music and enjoy kind of the process that it makes a listener think, if that makes sense.
Yes, no, that does. Yeah. I know that you wrote quite a bit of this EP, if not most of it, with the partner that you just mentioned, Josh, before. I'm curious, what is that process like, co-writing and kind of, I guess, working on these songs with someone who is so close to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, exposing. I think you write about the things that are most important or most prevalent to you at that moment and at that time. So there were definitely probably more in post-production than anything moments where we would listen to the writing and be like, oh, we were having a bit of a tricky patch there. But, I mean, the last EP that I released, the independent one, which is called Tell Me How You Really Feel, we wrote that together as well. So I think it was just actually quite an exciting kind of continuation from that project. And it does cause conflict though, but I don't think that's ever negative. It just takes a bit of extra time sometimes. Exactly. Sometimes some of the best art can come from conflict. So I can definitely get that. Yeah, for sure.
I know that Josh helped produce the EP as well with with the lovely Scott Horscroft, who people might know from his work with Sarah Blasko or DMAs. What was that experience like for yourself? I guess both working with Scott and then also having Josh kind of put his own touch on things.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a really amazing experience collaborating, because I think we've always sort of worked independently together. So having someone else in the mix was a real learning experience for us, and meant that having an extra voice and an extra opinion and extra experience, broadens and provides such an exciting kind of thing. So it was honestly a really good learning experience and so much fun. The Grove is so beautiful.
It is a very, very lovely studio, that studio.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. They have goats. I love animals. So
the EP itself, I know we just kind of touched on it, like how listening back some of the lyrical content, mostly good, maybe a little bit of conflict, but all good with you and Josh. The lyrics themselves, the EP seems to be covering kind of subjects of both love and then sometimes subjects of, I guess, maybe like a lack of trust or confusion in relationships, not necessarily romantic, but just in whatever kind of relationships you can apply it to. When you are lyric writing, when you are sitting down to write a song, how do you approach the topic that you're going to write about, and how do you feel, I guess, about writing about such personal things without, airing out all dirty laundry?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I really have strong feelings about like bitterness, and like I'm quite a positive sort of person. And so I think one thing that I always come back to in my lyric writing is this going to be something that's uplifting for a listener? Or if it does take them into like a deep kind of reflective or maybe sad place, does it bring them out of it again? And so whenever I'm writing, I guess I really focus on taking the positive from a really negative situation and how I can kind of process and learn from it and grow from it and develop the skill to, just like walk through something without having it like ruin my life or like overtake me with bitterness. And and that is something that my listener can experience too, that they can sort of have those processes and have those thoughts without falling into bitterness as well.
Yeah, of course. I know previously you've spoken about wanting to create like a safe space for your listeners when they are listening to songs that can kind of help, whether it be as part of therapy, whether it be just as like as a safe space to be able to kind of process things. Has that always been, because not all artists do that, so firstly you should be commended for that, but secondly, is that something that you kind of found along the way? I guess what was the inspiration for being aware of that and wanting to create that for your listeners?
Yeah, I think I kind of my musical sort of journey started in church, and so for me, like my faith is something that's really important to me, and it's always been instilled in me how important like the words are, the words that we sing, the words that we say, and so I think I've always sort of had that instilled in me. And just I think the way that we communicate with others and the way that we leave them feeling when we leave them is something that's invaluable. So yeah, I think it's always been a part of like my personality or my belief system.
No, that's very fair. Again, I think it is something that is definitely a positive, and that maybe more artists could do. They don't need to, but they possibly could do when they're kind of writing and approaching that process. Bella, I would love to kind of talk about, I know you just touched on it a little bit, I'd love to talk about your first introduction to music and how you kind of got into singing and how that journey started.
Yeah. So I guess I love to sing, and I've always kind of been able to. It's been something that I've like enjoyed since I was little, but never really found any kind of like purpose or drive towards it until I started going to church. So I started going to church when I was 15, just like my upbringing at home was pretty wonky. And so having that community and having like an uplifting community was something that I was really drawn to. And obviously music has been a part of, people's faith and the church, whether it's one denomination or one religion or another, forever. And so it became a huge part of my life, from when I was 15. And I like started singing in church and, listening to lots of kind of like R&B soul music as well in that kind of journey. And that, definitely led me to really love R&B soul music and, just like the power of how it can impact someone, I guess.
I know some of the influences that you've spoken about previously to, I guess, in the press or whatever. I know that there's Yebba, I think her, Adele. So there are some very strong soulful voices there. I think one of my favourites that we might share is the Australian band, the Audreys, as well.
Love. Yeah. Before I kind of started going to church and like the music that I grew up listening to was like alt folk music. And so I feel like I have this really weird, like not weird or bad, but just like people often ask what my influences are. And it's this like weird meld of like these kind of like soulful female singers with like these like alt folk melodies, so I think it does definitely come into play with my writing.
100%. I think you've almost beat me to the punch there. I was going to say these songs kind of no, not at all. I think some of these songs have this beautiful combination of like soul music, but some of the arrangements do suit something that you might hear on like the Audreys or Angus and Julia Stone kind of record.
Yeah.
With that in mind, would you ever? And I know we're only talking about the EP now. We've got many albums ahead of us, I'm sure. At some point, would we maybe look at also doing like a bit of an alt folk project as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think my first EP, which is Tell Me How You Really Feel, was kind of a bit more lent that way. It's like really heavy on acoustic instruments and the melodies are quite a bit lighter and the vocal arranging also kind of is a bit lighter in that first project. So I think that was kind of a bit of my ode to, folk alt music as much as I would lean that way. But I think it's always influenced my writing. So maybe, yeah.
No, that's very, very fair. Bella, I know that and quite a few people would be aware of the previous 12 months for you, but for anyone who wasn't, they might be living under a rock, they might be listening to this podcast somewhere not in Australia, but you were crowned the winner of The Voice 2021 in Australia. Firstly, congratulations. I'm sorry that it's a little bit of a delayed congratulations, but congrats.
That's good. Thanks.
I was wondering whether you'd be able to tell us, I guess, a little bit about your journey on the show and what it's like to be like an independent musician. As you said, you released an EP before the show. What it's like going on there as an independent musician and that whole kind of experience.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Get a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/work. Shopify.com/work.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really lucky that I went in not with like no expectation, but with an expectation that as much as kind of was like it was give and take both ways. You know, I had the opportunity to maximize my experience and take all the positive from it. And I feel like, you know, I'm young, I'm 24, but I've had a bit of life experience. And so that really helped me going through the process, and really knowing who I am, I guess, and being able to hold my own, and know what I would and wouldn't compromise. And so it was amazing. Like, all of the behind the scenes team are so incredible. All of the producers and the wardrobe team and all of the other artists were amazing. And yeah, I mean, it was an overall positive experience. I think one thing that I've been struggling to bridge, or not struggling, but venturing to bridge is, you know, the difference between the music that I've just released and kind of my profile on the show. And obviously, like, I love a big ballad, love a big sing, you know, can totally do it. And I had the opportunity to show that in the show. But now I'm just sort of trying to take a step back and show, you know, my listeners that my music is actually a lot more broad than that, and means a lot to me outside of the show.
Yeah, of course. I can imagine it is. Well, it's a very good point. Like, a number of singing television shows, you do kind of have to fit not like a certain mold, and that's not necessarily the artists themselves, but each song that you're singing might be. And this is, I'm kind of classifying all the shows together, so I'm not specifically the voice, but like, yeah, you're kind of picking these songs based on what you have to pick them on. Whereas outside of that, the artist profile most of the time is vastly different.
Yeah, definitely. And it fills a demographic in like a really effective way, you know, and I think it's just as much a TV show as much as it's, you know, like a talent development or talent finding show. So I think going into it with that perspective is something that you really need to do. Yeah.
I think that's very, very smart. I think they've just begun, or they might have already begun, the new season for 2022, and I was curious whether for anyone who would be kind of for anyone who's going on, do you have any kind of advice to those artists who are now starting their own journey?
Yeah, I think just like going into things with like an open heart. I know it sounds a bit cringy, but to be honest, like the people that you encounter, everyone has, you know, their desires and their motives and the things that they want or need from you, in the context of doing any kind of show or project where it's not like solely your project. And so I think just generally like not being bitter or frustrated when things don't go the way that you kind of envisioned them, and knowing that like in the most loving way, it's what you signed up for, you know? And so I think like just take all the good that you can from the experience, because in the most loving way also, that's what the show's going to do to you. They're going to take as much as they can from you in order to succeed in their endeavors as well. So just do the same.
I actually kind of love that advice. I love that it's still very positive, but also realistic as well. Yeah.
And if you're young, I think as well, especially because I really felt for some of the guys, like my season, I was like the third oldest person when we got to the semis, which is bonkers because I'm 24. Like I'm so young, you know? And so I think increasingly, again, we're seeing heaps of young people come through. So just like have your friends and have your family and just be uplifting to others, you know, because we're all just looking for some support, and you can actually be just as impactful as anyone else in the experience too.
That's very true. I kind of like that advice, and I imagine that there's, quite as you mentioned, quite a few young people who maybe haven't gone through as much life experience, or even just kind of seen, I guess, the previous. I might have been in high school, not to give away my own age, but I might have been in high school when your mentor first rose to prominence in Australian Idol. And so there's many series of shows showing all these kind of different journeys. And I imagine that, for them, it's maybe not having seen those, it is kind of a whole brand new experience for them.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah. Speaking of your mentor, the lovely Guy Sebastian, he is going out. He's going out on the road this April and June, and you happen to be joining him on tour, which is very exciting. How are you feeling about taking these songs out and touring with Guy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled. I think I couldn't be more overwhelmed by like the honor of someone offering for me to, come on tour with them. I think, our careers are all so personal to us. So having him entrust me with that is amazing. And it's the best platform. And I just can't wait to sing in front of people, and meet these people who have been so supportive, of me and my career, and just enjoy being in the room with people who want to be there for music and sing. I miss singing. It's like the thing that I'm good at. And so I'm excited to get to do it.
Yeah, that's very, very fair. I'm curious because you were an artist before The Voice, as we discussed, and I guess going from playing gigs beforehand and then having this experience and now going into much bigger rooms with many more people, not even just for Guy, but many more people wanting to see you. There's also, sorry, I forgot to mention, there is your own personal tour in July as well. Yes. I imagine, how are you feeling about like that kind of next step in terms of, I guess, these bigger rooms, these bigger crowds with all these people who, they want to see Bella play and sing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm nervous, to be honest. I think, like, for me, I actually didn't really do many shows beforehand. I did, like, gigs occasionally, but more like weddings and that kind of thing, and then sung a lot for my church, so, like, at conferences, and it's just a totally different, I don't know if motive is the right word, but it's just a really different approach. And so it's not something that I've experienced much on a small or large scale. So I'm nervous, but I'm excited and hoping that, people just want to hear me sing, and hopefully that'll be enough. I'm like working on tracks at the moment with Josh for Guy's tour and then for my tour afterwards. And we're like really trying to figure out the balance of how much I can get away with, if that makes sense. Like just having a big sing and like how we need to kind of craft it. But yeah, I'm nervous. Hopefully it'll go well.
I'm sure that you have got this, and I know that in terms of having a big sing, I think that's people like all the feedback, all the kind of press, all the fan adulation that I read in preparation for today was that they love the absolute powerhouse voice that you have. So I think the more big sing that you have, the better.
Yeah. This is what I think so too. So hopefully my voice will last 9 weeks or something with mine and Guy's tour together.
That's very fair. Bella, usually we would ask our guests what they're currently listening to, if there's anything at the moment that's kind of caught your eye, maybe on your record player or on your streaming service respectively.
Yeah. I definitely have a few albums that I continually come back to. So Yeba's album that she released recently, Her's album her most recent release. I love listening to Justin Bieber. I think his new album smacks so hard. Listening to Harry Styles at the moment a lot with his new single that's just come out. I really like it. Just trying to kind of get my head in the pop game a little bit as well, because it's not necessarily I definitely stick to what I enjoy listening to. I feel like music can sometimes be activate a work part of my brain, so I listen to things that I'm most familiar with to wind down. But Josh, my partner, is really into listening to what's happening, and he's a producer, so that's kind of his thing. But yeah, listening to Harry Styles at the moment with his new single out mostly.
It is a fantastic single, and yes, I can definitely. It is a great song. Bella, thank you very much for your time today. Congratulations again on the EP, which is out now, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And that's our show. A massive thank you to Bella Taylor-Smith for her time. Look Me in the Eyes is out now, and we've left links in the show notes if you'd like to stream the EP or catch her on tour. We also want to give a huge shout out to Mariam at EMI Music Australia for helping out with today's interview. If you like this show, please subscribe wherever you get your pods and stay up to date when new episodes are released. We release new shows each Wednesday and Friday morning, and we now have a Patreon, which you can find within the show notes of this episode. You can follow the playlist profile on Spotify, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next week, cheers.
This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Why doesn't eHarmony allow copy and paste in first messages? Because you are unique, and your conversations should reflect that. eHarmony wants you to find someone who will get you. How are you going to know who gets you? If people send you the same generic conversation starters they message everyone else. Conversations that actually help you get to know each other. Imagine that. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.